Good morning, gang. Welcome to Forward Focus. I don't quite have my screen up yet. I've been checking a trade here. Hold on 1 second and I will get that up though for us. And then I'll show you guys what we're looking at right now that's trying to trigger at the moment. So it is June 12th already. Things are totally crazy here in Tucson land. We are dealing with some massive forest fires. Let me pull up our NASDAQ though, because we have a momentum reversal that is triggering right as we speak. If I can get my chart. I just took ATM partials out with the 2-wave measure move on a smaller time frame. I'm going to clear this up. Timing on this is like quite lovely because it's right when we're setting up into class here. Does everyone hear me okay? Yes, no, maybe, yes. Okay, good. Awesome. Right, here's our momentum reversal. You guys see this? So my entry is on the NQ, time and sales, 97.1675. And I just took partials off at 97.0575. And I added back in at 97.12. Let me show you guys this really fast. We are just doing some ATM on this because of the trend placement. Awesome. Harvey has this too from the last little swing. So this is one of those that we consider to be a higher risk momentum reversal. Who can tell me why? I'm going to show you guys. We got some great fibs going on here too. Who can tell me our pros and cons on this? And we'll get to our regularly scheduled programming here shortly. I couldn't resist, you guys. It's like, ooh, 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 I've been waiting. There it is. Go, go, go. I might end up scratching on the rest of it, but I'm going to show you here, and I'm going to show you the pros and the cons on this. So this is one of those where I take a lot more off early stages because we are dealing with, I need my other NASDAQ chart here that has more of my tabs at the bottom. Here we go. So here's kind of like a bigger picture. This is the 8,000. Here's the 20,000. So see what we were looking at the 20,000? We're on this double tap on the bottom on this support. And that's actually a really, really strong support level right there. With that happening, let me put on some of the retracement levels for the bigger fibs here. So you're right at about a 50% on that move. It didn't quite make it down to the 61.8. And on the bigger move, we're right around 38.2. And then we had the 23.6% right there. And then let me show you what was going on here on the smaller setup. So what I was looking at here originally was this might go into a megaphone, that it could go and have a pullback here. Well, it didn't go. Instead, it started doing these V's. Interestingly, the spacing on the distance between these three V's here at this point, not as perfect as we would normally like to see. By the way, we've got a little bit of a megaphone right here. Let me go to the smaller time frame. Here you can see it. So see, there's the even spacing. So you can see there's a little bit slower move on the time frame chart. And so that for me is a negative. So that means that on a setup for reversals up here, I want to be way more aggressive on taking partials, where I add back in, where I take partials, so that if the overall position doesn't work, then I end up with just a scratch trade on what might be left on the position. And that's actually what just happened here. Let's go and show you kind of the details of this as it's unfolding, and then we'll go back to our regularly scheduled momentum forward focus class. So this is a little megaphone here that's trying to play out right now that I just called for you guys. It's actually easier to see it on the 5-tick chart. Where's the, I don't have that small of a tick chart here. Let me add that. I always like, hey, do I take a trade when it's right going into class or do I not? Because you got to do advanced trade management on some of these things. So here's the megaphone just now that I was just mentioning. It was just a little small baby megaphone, which was a short right here, 2 waves down, held, pop back up. Okay, so back to our momentum reversal though. This is kind of a momentum reversal plus type of thing on the larger time frame. I was trying to do, except that we didn't get the 2 wave down for the plus. Okay, so back here, we have 50 tick. So I'm going to show you this in details because this is a great example of how something can start out. And then the cons mean that you've got to do some really close management on things like this. So here's what we were looking at. So we've got, I'm going to put the even spacing on here. I'm just going to go through this start to finish. So ideal momentum reversal would trigger right about here. Momentum reversal is a pattern where you have deep V's and inverse V's. You do not want, ideally, slower pullbacks. You want it to come up to the upper end of the channel zone for a trigger. So on this, we had a little bit of a false start here. And let's see here. I originally tried this at this high over here. This is my first retracement because we were coming into 123.6% extension zone, 100% extension zone, had a 2 wave, and then that brought it into an attempt for momentum reversal. So if that was going to hold as that bigger megaphone, that's the zone that would have held. Now here's where things get interesting again. So at a momentum reversal at highs, what I like to take is if it goes and does a 2T, if it goes and does a megaphone though, what does that mean, you guys? We've been talking about this in League of Traders for the last 2 weeks. If you have the 3 highs and then it starts to do a megaphone, what's that mean? Is that a pro or a con? Time correction, right, Kron? So that can be a con because that can mean that it can break higher. But we don't know if it's going to be a megaphone unless it breaks that channel. So I use that channel break as an advanced trade management trailing stop in a situation like this. So let me go into the details, show you how I managed this trade. This is why I was kind of back and forth here as we were getting started in class. Scroll this on over here. Here's the lovely little megaphone up here trying to turn things around a little bit. So here's the details. So what you can see with the detail here is that this went into a 2T. And again, this is right at that upper channel for the trend channel. So we already started to shift a little bit here with a 1-2 move here. So I used that as my short zone. And let's see again what my price was on that I mentioned earlier. Yeah, we've got that next reversal attempt here. It was 97.1675. So we're actually closer to about here. So right here. So pretty close to that trend break. Basically, when this started to pull back again, I hit the bid, sell bid, and that's where I got filled. So this came down, nice move down here, popped back up, two-wave measured move. I got out of a huge chunk of the position at this level. So the reason I did that was, if you look at this momentum down, what's that tell you, you guys? What's the momentum look like there? Let me transect, and it gives you kind of a little bit of a better feel for it. So here's the momentum on the way up. Here's the last momentum down. Here's the momentum on this one. It's a little bit slower. Yeah, so that to me is, something's a little bit kind of not so right here. But it popped up here, and then it started to have a really strong sell again. So I added back in, but not to the point that I was at a full size. And then what I wanted to see was this go and do really fast continuation. So I got really tight on my trailing stop on that. And I used it basically above here. So the rest of my position ended up closing out here. I took some more off in here. So this was something where I entered it with the potential that this could go for a bigger move. But the way it was playing out here in the upper zones using that advanced trade management, it helps protect me. So when it went and ended up popping here really fast, that got me out of the position. And what that meant was, hey, let's wait for the next chance. Now, we were in class, I actually missed the next chance here, but I'll go and show you guys what that one was. We were coming into it. I mentioned it fast, but I didn't get an order on myself. And that was the megaphone reversal up here. So this was the second chance. And then the confirmation was right here. So this was the second chance, which if we hadn't been in class, that's what I would have been trying again. Because we're still at a lot of resistance. This is also a fib retracement level here. It was, let's see here. I had it on one of the charts. It was a 23.6%. So it's a 23.6% Fibonacci retracement. And that was hitting right smack at where that momentum reversal originally hit. So that was right here. 23.6% Fibonacci retracement of that big drop that we had seen overnight. So it's still in that zone of that. And that's what we're seeing now. Look at the little baby 2B. This is a steep 2B. So that's an indication, hey, protect your gains. You're going to get another bounce there. It's also the lower end of a bigger channel here. So we've got to keep things into perspective. We've been talking about this the last couple of weeks where setups are taking place in a larger trend. So when you have double bottom moves and they go past what would be about, there to there equal distance, then that can keep going. So you want to be more cautious on the short side at that point and stick to more of a scalpish type of move. So right now we're looking at just more scalp type of action, but the market has been giving really good patterns on that throughout the day so far. We had a beautiful 2B coming off of this low this morning. Look at this, you guys. This is basically a textbook 2B right here. The two ways down and then a little baby 2B right there. Perfect textbook 2B. And I know some of you were posting that you caught that, so that is awesome. I missed the first part of it because when I saw it, it was right about here. So I built into a position in this level. So let's go look now at what's going on the larger time frames. We'll go back to our regularly scheduled programming here with forward focus now. So what we were looking at here over the last 2 days was NASDAQ 10K, massive, massive resistance point for the NASDAQ, all-time high here, also very strong psychological level. We saw tons of orders going off on that. What we were talking about here in our Telegram channel and League of Traders, I kind of left the room open the other day for a little longer, was that a lot of times you'll get reaction off of that 10,000 and it can even then go and push to like 10,100 and still be considered at the 10,000 level. Well, in this case, it pushed to what, 10,150-ish, right about there. So it basically did that same thing where it goes and it pushes over and people think, oh, it's broken by 100 points or it's broken by 150 points and that means that it's broken. It does not. It still means it's really, really strong as a resistance point. And so that's what we were seeing yesterday and the day before as things were coming into that level and then triggering reversals as it was hitting that point. So really right around here, we were looking at some of the extension levels and look at that 100% extension. This was one of the fib extensions that I posted. It was treating this as basically a two-wave correction here, with this as the main impulse move up going into May. First correction, second correction as a time correction. And again, the megaphone as a time correction, right? So that means that it can push higher eventually. And that's what we're looking at right now. It's right at the lower end of that megaphone that we were just watching on a much bigger scale. Right into the 100%, which was right around that 10,100 level that we were talking about the other day. So this had lots of technical order triggers for selling. A lot of traders using this zone to get out of the market thanks to recovering and coming back up into those previous highs. And what we were also looking at was on the ES. On the daily chart on the ES. Let me see, where'd that go? So what we were watching on the daily chart on this ES was that time correction here again to do another move. And then we were looking at this as two main levels of resistance. We were looking at this measured move first, and then the potential for that measured move second, just depending upon how it would react at that level. Right now, the way this pulled back, it's going to make getting back up to that level harder. It can still try it, but the odds are higher that it won't. So we're right at that channel break zone. We were talking about that zone as well. And this is a slower move here too than over here. So let me put those extensions on there again so you guys can see what we were watching over the last couple of weeks. I'm going to put the retracement level first. So first we were watching 76.4% retracement, which it really came and pulled through that zone. We can say right now that it is hugging the 76.4% Fibonacci retracement, even though it looks like, hey, prices are getting close to that 61.8, but this could go into a range, right, at that 76.4. So another thing we're looking at here then are the extensions. So the first extension we were watching was this one. So we were watching this first as that 100% extension, and that's what ended up holding. So we can see a really good resistance level right at that 100%. And then we were also watching this one, the bigger one, where that 100% is corresponding basically to the 61.8% right now. Both of these fib extension levels are totally valid. So when you're looking at these for assessing support and resistance, a lot of times I'll flip back and forth between the two. Weekly, as you can see, we are just in one big, huge, massive megaphone. This is usually going to go into a bigger trading range that it will be more of a time correction overall. So a lot of times these will start out with a really big swings, and then they'll go into a steadier trend move, and they can go into a trading range trend move, or they can go into like a steadier move, but basically you'll get more of the overlap after this point. A really good example of this would be to look intraday the other day following the Fed. Let's see, where was that announcement at? Here. So we can't see it on the 5-minute, but let me go and pull it up on a smaller chart, like the 15-second chart. Just gotta make it back to the right day now. So see this whipsaw reaction here on the Fed? This is the same type of thing that we are seeing happening right now in the market. So in this case, though, it went all the way back up with the two waves and then did that third shift. Totally typical of what we've talked about many, many, many times in League of Traders. And it did the pullback. And so we're kind of like going to be going into this zone here at this point. So very similar type of action to that is what I'm anticipating. A lot more overlap. Sure, we might see things like a 2T, but on the bigger horizon, you're looking at more of the back and forth, and then that can come back and again stay in the range a little bit longer too. So we're looking at that type of action here as we're going forward. That's what I'm kind of watching for. We got a little bit of an avalanche here trying to form on this on the 15-second. This can be a really good time for swing trades to start to develop, because you'll get zones where you'll have like these longer, slower corrections, and you'll be able to time some of the swings pretty nicely too, because you'll get a lot more like the Phoenixes and Avalanches intraday that will be cleaner and can lead to then like a multi-day move on a daily chart where it might move for like 2 to 3 days and have a smooth trend move and a little bit less whippiness. So you'll see that on a lot of like the individual securities at this point. Let's go look at, let's see, we'll go look at some of the Forex pairs. We haven't looked at a lot of Forex pairs lately. I'll start with the euro dollar here. We're doing essentially the equivalent of a bit of an avalanche now. So basically what happened was that momentum reversal served as a little bit of an early stake, and then it went and it did that flush with the megaphone. So we got a nice little avalanche here on the NASDAQ coming into some support. I'm just going to post this chart fast, and then we're going to go look here at the euro dollar. Hopefully some of you were able to catch that continuation move there. If you didn't catch the megaphone. So here's kind of the little messy avalanche. We're just coming right back into the support here. Okay, so good avalanche in the euro dollar this morning too, right? Look at that. That was beautiful. This is a perfect example of what I call a shallow avalanche. So what a shallow avalanche is you've got the two waves down, then you get a two-wave correction. And this one is about textbook. So this is as close to textbook as you're usually going to get on a shallow avalanche. So what happens is you've got a strong move up here, and then you've got a slower pullback for the two waves. Then we have an even slower correction going this way. What usually then happens is that when that channel breaks, you get an extreme strong momentum move. So this is about as textbook as you get for a shallow avalanche. Really beautiful example here. I'm actually going to go and grab a screenshot of this for our records. I'm compiling some templates and screenshots for you guys with different strategies. So this is a really good one to show for the shallow avalanche. We had some good shallow avalanches over the last couple of days too. Those who've been following them in League of Traders. Absolutely, I can explain shallow avalanche one more time too. So here is what you get with a shallow avalanche. What you have is a strong move up where overall momentum is average to stronger than average. And then you get a two-wave correction. When you transect that two-wave correction, your momentum is going to be slower than the transected momentum of your upswing. So for a shallow avalanche, what you then want to see is another two-wave correction. Your time development is going to be about 1 to 1. And then you're going to look for a channel break. Now you can look for earlier setups higher within this. Sometimes I'll build a position in this zone here. But the confirmation is really when that lower channel breaks. And a lot of times you can get lucky and you'll have a little baby avalanche at the end too. Now with a shallow avalanche, a typical avalanche, you would be looking for a 1-to-1 target. Shallow avalanche, a lot of times you're even looking for twice that. You're basically looking for a 1-2-3 move where you have two measured bigger waves and then it can widen up. And that can even go to lower lows, but the most guaranteed target is that 1-2-3 drop. And a 1-2-3 drop is just one down, kneecap, one down, measured move. So this and this are about the same. And then a lot of times you'll see things shift. It can go lower. Doesn't necessarily have to, but it can. Right now, if you're looking at the 800 tick of the NASDAQ, this portion here looks really similar to what we have going on the 800 tick of the on the blah 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 on the NASDAQ. Look at that. See right there? So technically, this could be the early stage of the development of a shallow avalanche going into this afternoon. Would have to hold this range here for about that long again, and then that could trigger a shallow avalanche. So let me show you what that comparison again was. So there's no guarantee it's going to hold that range, but we're right about this zone right here right now because it's going for a slightly lower low here, just like it did here. So the NASDAQ is currently doing this right here. So as long as it holds right here and goes into that range, we could get that solid avalanche, but it would have to hold right here. Let me again show you the comparison where the NASDAQ is. So see, right there. So as long as it does that, that can go into that shallow avalanche. So let me kind of scroll this over and play out what that would look like. So what that would look like is as long as it holds here, does something like that, then you've got a breakdown that would be right around trigger point starting to happen right around 1300 to 1315. So we'll see if that indeed does that or not, but that's what we've got that possibility of here. Pretty decent possibility too. Let's look at our larger euro dollar. So larger euro dollar daily or weekly here. Looks like it's trying to mount a real recovery. We've got the slower shallow attempts, and then it went to do like almost momentum reversal plus type of moves. Really, really steep move out of this, so it's tricky to keep that momentum up. Daily chart, it's okay. This is a difficult trading zone right here, you guys. This is something usually you're looking at smaller time frames, because this is a baby 2T. So here you can see that 2T. It wasn't even a very pretty 2T because it spiked and then kind of shifted. So then it went into a symmetrical triangle. The question is, does it do another 1, 2, 3 here? Right now, intraday, it looks like it could still maintain momentum strongly on the downside. This could be like what the NASDAQ is doing too, since it's not holding that pattern for trying to do a shallow avalanche. It did not hold that low we needed to see held. So it could be trying to go for this now, same thing. It's a little too steep for necessarily going into a megaphone. It's still a possibility, but it would need to do something to kind of slow momentum down here, because we need to see some wider spacing between these two lows and these two highs to get a megaphone to come back up. That's something I'll be watching as a potential move though. Larger, I don't really know. I mean, on this, I would just kind of play this close to the vest. We don't really have a big setup forming here. It could still come all the way back down into this zone here. So no big, huge bias on this going into next week. Forex, Aussie dollar. Got a bit of support again here on the NASDAQ. This looks a lot like the S&P 500 on this daily chart here. It's a strong resistance, but we see these push higher sometimes. So I'm not too excited on the turnaround. These are patterns here like this where it's really more of a crap shot as to where this ends up playing out, it comes down to what's going on smaller time frames. So right now, like on the intraday, for example, you can see there was a momentum shift there. I'll go down smaller. So it was about like a momentum reversal type of thing going on here with that nice pretty 2T. So the 2T was a beautiful setup intraday. But at this point, we aren't at a level for a good setup again. This can sometimes go and hit this level here, bounce, go do a slightly lower low, and then manage to recover all the way. We see that happening. Or it manages to go into more of an avalanche and break down, in which case volume would be declining. So it's actually a con here that volume is stronger here, as a con as far as the bears go. So it's harder for that to develop into an avalanche with this volume spike. We've been talking about volume earlier this week, and what we would normally want to see with an avalanche forming is that we wouldn't get this spike in volume here. We would see volume kind of declining along this level here, and then we would get that second wave up, and then we would get another decline in volume here, and then the breakdown. So you get almost a shallow avalanche here. But right now, it's not looking like that. It's looking more like it could hit the low here, come in for maybe a slightly lower low to tap that level, and then do a bounce again. So I would be leaning more towards that as we head into next week on the 60-minute charts for like a bump in the weekend going into early next week. We'll see how that plays out. But currently, with the way volume is and momentum, that's the most probable move on the intraday charts. And then again, I said the daily is more iffy. This could widen up here, could just go into more of a back and forth channel at that high. Euro Swiss has the opposite risk. This can go and pull further here, further down into this range. So you'll notice here, and I've been picking on Harvey for this one a lot, when a huge spike like this then goes and almost immediately retraces a third of that move, it is easier for that to keep going on the downside. Yep, Harvey's speaking up here. Yes, a third, a third, a third. So this pulled back a third way too fast. And a lot of times that makes it easier to keep going. So this could even go and break this previous low over the course of the next month. So I would be looking more for bearish setups on this one. This is the Euro Swiss. Euro yen, I know some of you guys were following this over the last couple of weeks. What do we got there, Harvey? Third again. So if this just chops around here, you guys, this could be a good spot where shallow tilted avalanches can form and create another wave down. So intraday, be very careful. The bears definitely have the upper hand on this one right now. There's a little bit of that bounce there off the NASDAQ support here. I'll show you this NASDAQ. It might do a momentum reversal plus here. So here's the support I was talking about a couple minutes ago. I need a smaller time frame. So here's a little bit of a messy momentum reversal type of zone. So this might come and do a momentum reversal plus where we could get this retesting the low down here and then doing a little bit of a stronger bounce again. That's what I would like to see it do. That way I can catch it too. Right now it's not quite trying it. We call this our pointed ballet dancer, our point ballet dancer with her pointed toe, because when we go up to a bigger time frame, this is just a really tiny little shift in momentum on the bigger time frame. It's not as pointed as is usually the concern though. If it was pointed more like this, then it opens up greater chance that this will pop, come back down, and then do a bigger pop. So that's what we are looking for, see if that happens here. Again, the angle of it is not as bad, like as bad for like the bulls. It's easier for that to try to sustain it, but it's just really short. So Euro Yen weekly, that's a great break on the weekly. It's just pulling back too much. So we need things to shift around intraday in this to try to get that going again. So the main concern for the bulls on this would be if, hold on a second, you guys, this goes and does something like this, and then that channel breaks. That would typically bring in a plunge at that point. So if that formation happens, watch out for a bigger move to advance on the downside. So that is a potential setup to happen next week. There's a lot of steps in here, needs to go through to get to there first, but that's one possibility here on this one. Basically, this pattern breaks strongly either way though. So if it comes up fast off of this and breaks that channel on the upside, after you have another high, we need another high here first, but after you have another high, if it does that, then there's a better chance that that is going to be okay and that we will see that go and regain momentum on the upside again. But it would have to do that first. Right now, the NASDAQ is trying to do a little mega phoenix here versus putting in that lower low we were looking for. Hold on just a second, guys. I had an order go wonky on me here. I shorted that high. But I forgot to take my ATM motor off on it. I'll show you what I just did. Hold on a second. This is why it's hard to trade while you're teaching. kind of miss stuff every once in a while. Like, whoops, that triggered an ATM order. Eek. A good example to show you of a trade though. Let's see it best on the 20 tick here. I shorted here. And then closed it here. So just had a two-wave down. So what I was doing was going for the pattern that we were just talking about. I'm like, hey, if I'm going to talk about it, I might as well trade it, right? So what we were looking at was that megaphone or the momentum reversal, and then trying to go and do a momentum reversal plus here. So this is your double bottom here, and this is the attempt to now go and bounce off of that level. So we'll see how that plays out here. In the meantime, let's go back and look at a couple of those additional charts. So NVIDIA held that 2T-ish zone, kind of went with an avalanche here. So NVIDIA's picking up steam here. This is kind of concerning because it can actually go and do a bigger move. We didn't have the overall shift here to do this as a shallow avalanche, but it definitely has that concern that it could pick up momentum here. Basically put a fan on from here to here, watch for the support levels. But momentum is pretty good on this downside, so it's going to be a little bit harder to flip this back around again. So the main support is going to be right here where this channel breaks on NVIDIA. That's going to be the main support zone on this. All right, so what else would you guys like me to look at here? I'll just take a couple more minutes, take a couple more of your guys' thoughts. IWM. Yeah, I've just flipped my NASDAQ too. Sorry guys, I don't usually trade when I'm doing class, but here's the buy that we were just talking about, so I flipped it here. So what I'm looking at this right now is that we're at the first resistance. This needs to do more like a little kneecap type of move here. And then this can go and put in another leg up. We can get some more upside on this. Let me go to a different time frame. So usually on this, you're going to get back to that upper end of the channel. And then a lot of times it can go to a slightly higher high. So we can actually get a bigger pattern here on this. Again, this is the momentum reversal plus that we were talking about earlier in class. So right now we're at some first initial resistance zone and it's hitting it pretty decently here. I just got partials taken off right there. And then what I'm looking for is right about here as a bigger target. So 96, 78-ish, 75-ish, between that zone. Now, Harvey, what do I need to watch for? One-third, right? We don't want it to pull back more than a third. If it does, it needs to hold there. So here's where I took my partials, you guys, basically previous highs here. So what we need is this zone here to hold to get that to keep going. If this goes into choppiness here and breaks down to that choppiness, I'll give back a good portion of those gains, the rest of the gains on that. What's the third and fib estimate? 38.2. I mean, about 33.3333 infinity. I eyeball it. Yeah, so we're looking at a third of this move right here. So what are my risks on this, you guys? Holding on to the rest of the partials. What do you guys see? First of all, the fact that it's moved back a third, that's a big risk right there. Oops, took care. Oh, I just got triggered. So this just got me out of the rest of it. So what I did was I had a channel here and it just hit me. I might have put my stop a little too tight. We'll see. Maybe not. What happens is basically when it pulls back a third, it has that greater chance of doing a tilted, shallow avalanche. So it can go and gain momentum again at that point. That's kind of what we're seeing risking here right now. So I will close those out. And then if something happens later, then I can get back in. But I'll usually close those out under that channel break, which is what you just saw happen to me. I don't have my eyes totally fully on this today since I'm doing class here too, but I think it's cool you guys get to see an example of how we've been talking about something and then watching it play out too. So if I end up being wrong, usually what I'll do is I'll watch for a setup to get back into it. But it protects me from what happens is that when this pulls back a third and this channel here breaks, see, I had my stop maybe a little bit too tight, but when that channel breaks, what happens is that a lot of times this can go like this and barely look back at all. So if I really still like that upside move, I'll go and put a channel on this again so that if that does prove to have been a false takeout, it can get me back into a trade and I can play it again. But I'll still have that level to get me out. And sometimes that means getting back in at a bit of a higher price. But keep in mind, I was in from down here. Put my execution thing on my screen again. And my ad was right, I was a little late on my ad, it was right here. Usually I'll put a channel break and I'll have the market order right on it above that, but I was talking. Yeah, this is the support. They're right. Exactly. So anyways, not perfect management of this, but I'm okay with that since I was chatting at the same time. Let's go back to what we were talking about with IAWM here last, though. I know, totally unusual forward focus session for you guys, right? But you get to see some of what I'm doing too, so that's kind of cool. So I'm going to put this on. I haven't traded the last 2 days with a migraine, so I'm trying to make up for it, I guess. Let's see, IWM. Yeah, it's almost doing a two-wave, like we could get another continuation breakout on a bigger time frame right now. So it did like a first step price correction, and now it's trying to do a time correction. I think it still has some more legs on it. Yeah, these are setups I wait for. I mean, you guys saw I didn't do anything with one of the earlier attempts. I waited for that second action there. So I played it on the downside. Sorry, I'm just reading your questions too and answering those at the same time here. So what I did was I played it on the downside from here, looking for it to do that momentum reversal plus. But when it did this little move here, I didn't take that because I viewed that as being more of that pointed ballet toe thing that could go and do another move down. So I waited for that, and I waited for the extra little flush here because this is still strong momentum. So then when this popped, so see how this didn't pop here with any momentum, but then when this popped, that told me it was good. So it's kind of like those little details. So I got out of the short here when the momentum was shifting, and then flipped it after the 2B. And yeah, it's still doing good on the upside here, but it's kind of shifting right here. So this would be another way that could trail you out of a position with that channel break right here, if you were able to get that long again. Not looking at the larger time frames though, so that's always a bad thing. Always make sure you go and look at your larger time frames, you guys. This is a potential for a megaphone as a mega lanch on the short side. So watch for that possibility too. That's another thing to watch for today. Okay. IWM, I promise we'll get to that here. I think I had some withdrawal, you guys. So nice 2T up there, and we are right smack at main for support. This should chop around a little bit longer here. The way it shifted down into this support, that could allow it to bounce a little bit better, but it's still pretty strong momentum. So I would not really be looking at a bigger time frame setup here quite yet, other than if it does like a little double bottom in here and tries to bounce, just like what we were talking about on the NQ intraday. Oh, by the way, that mega lanch on the NQ is triggered. So on the daily on this is really threatening to break that lower channel. Good breakaway gap here. That was about the 76.4% retracement on the daily. So I assume we're around the 61.8 or 50% now. 50%. Oh my gosh, look at that, guys. How perfect. Perfect 76.4. I would really like this to get down to the 38.2 before I would look for a bigger bounce. If it can pull into the 38.2, we could get a nice strong bounce that might even take it back to the 61.8. But I don't really see anything here right now that's too interesting to me. That was a really beautiful continuation yesterday on the downside. Great gap play here. But intraday, this is iffy because you've now got a descending symmetrical triangle. So sometimes these can break the low and then pop back up and then go again. So it's going to be a harder one to trade over the next day, I think. I would go down smaller than 5 minute. Use the 5 minute as like your guide, you know, to look for setups like these. Like your 2B here, right, as the gap fills. But then use the smaller time frames to time your entries on this because the 5 minute is still too much. That mega Avalanche we were just talking about, totally rocking right now. I didn't catch that one. There it is. See it? Oh man, you caught it? That is awesome. Woohoo! So this is why trading is so fun, and this is why if you're not in League of Traders, you're totally missing out because this is what we're doing like every day. So here's your first support right there. You can see it with the 2 waves down at the 100, and then this is your second one right here because you're right at that channel break. So this is your next level. So if you're doing ATM, this is where you would protect. And then the bigger potential would be the lower channel, but as a mega Avalanche, it even has potential to go massively further than that. So this is even something that can go and break down to here. We need to see it offer more quickly confirmation so that this should go like a 1, 2, 3 here and then bigger there. That's what you need to see happening. Great session, you guys, of seeing how so many of the things are coming together though. Look at that. This is right at a do or die point here. You can also tell that do or die point by the division in the time, even spacing on that time division. So pretty. I've just got to leave this up here for you. So this is about as textbook as we get to for a mega Avalanche momentum megaphone drop. That nice little shift that we were seeing happening up there. And now you're down. This is 0.1, 2, 3, 4. Now you're down at 0.5 and see how it just did a perfect little kneecap just like we were looking at. And actually this is 2 waves on a smaller time frame too. See that? 1 and 2. So now you're back coming down into the next support zone. And we're now looking at, here's how I measure this. I measure this as basically your main wave 1, and this is your main wave 2. And you can see right when it hit that measured move, the momentum shifted. Three of you guys in here caught that. That is awesome. You know what gives you the confidence to trade these? You guys want to tell them? What's the main thing about it? Confidence, right? Seeing the pattern over and over and over again. So here is point 5. And sometimes it's totally okay to get into a pattern late once it offers confirmation, as long as you know that that pattern is something that is very, very successful, like our Avalanches. So you have that beautiful shift right here. So some of you got here, some of you got here, some of you got here. But your target is down here as like your minimum target zone, like your major target zone. Knowing how to use ATM helps absolutely, because you can get in, take part, add at a little better price, and do that in these upper levels so that even if it ends up failing, you end up with a scratch trade. With all the setups we've been watching during class, this is the one that I miss taking. I'm gonna cry, Sean. You gonna cry with me? Okay, he's just meowing. Totally kidding. I'm just gonna watch for the next trade. So Sean, when are you going to know enough about this that you can start taking over and teaching my classes for me? Huh? My assistant is 8 years old. He makes really great coffee. And meow sounds too. Yeah, he's great at making meow sounds. Well, all right, you guys. So we're going to call that a day here. So it's a good, awesome session to go review. I'll have it up on YouTube. And about the fire. Yeah, so we are in set, which means that we've got to be ready to basically hit the road if things change. For those of you that are wondering, what on earth is she talking about? Look up Bighorn Fire. That's us. Second largest fire in the country right now, I believe. 5,000 acres. And yeah, I don't really like seeing the entire mountain on fire out my back door, but okay. That's what we've got going on here. So thank you guys for checking in on me. We're holding up. Holding up. Yeah, Arizona, Tucson. Tucson fire. You can look it up. Catalina foothills. That is where I live. Thank you. All right, everyone. I'll see you back here next week. Crossing fingers. Bye, Al.